Alright, boys and ghouls, welcome back to the Horror After Dark podcast in the sack with JT. Hop on in here, cuddle up close, we got a disturbing tale to talk about tonight. Inside, from 2007. Now I'm gonna butcher these names, directed by Julien, Maury, that one's not that bad. Alexandre Bustillo, pretty sure that's the second one. And it was also written by Bustillo. This is part of the French Extremity horror film movement of the 2000s. I feel like there's four of these films that always get brought up. The first ones that get mentioned when you bring up French horror movies and extreme French horror films. It's Martyrs, High Tension or Switchblade Romance, Frontiers, and this film, Inside. All are super disturbing films. But if I had to give the trophy to one of them, I don't know, it would be a toss-up between Martyrs and this film. I love Inside. I think this is such an effective home invasion film. For those who haven't seen it, very vague plot. We have Sarah, who gets in a car crash while she's pregnant, and her husband ends up dying in this crash. And then this is kind of a Christmas movie, because I'm pretty sure it's Christmas Eve, that this mysterious woman tries breaking into Sarah's home to try to steal her child from out of her stomach. There is a lot of blood in this movie. There is a lot of really cool shots in this film. There are a lot of cool kills in this movie. A few made the top kills, one of those video volumes. And then we get the remake of this film. I forget when it came out, less than 10 years later. It's bad. It's very, very bad. Although it's not like the Martyrs remake is to the original Martyrs. The remake for Martyrs is atrocious. Inside's remake isn't that bad, but there's really no reason to see it. If you've seen this first movie or if you plan on seeing it, just watch the original French version. There's no reason to watch the American remake. But let's deep dive into Inside from 2007. Alright, this isn't like a big nitpick or anything, but the CGI baby at the very beginning, and I'm pretty sure, if I remember right, we see a few more shots throughout this movie of the baby inside of Sarah. So we see the CGI baby. It doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad, because, I don't know, I wasn't even going to keep this in here, because I was saying to myself, yeah, they got you CGI, it doesn't look the best, but what's the alternative? You can't just put a camera up inside somebody and have a fetus get beaten around for your movie. So I guess I retracted it. It looks as decent as it should. But we hear the car crash and then we see it, and man, they both look fucked up in this car. She's already a few months pregnant, Sarah, and first of all, the acting in this movie is excellent. It's mostly just Sarah and the woman. I forget if she even gets a name later on. It's been a while. But it's mostly just from the two of them. There's some other characters that come here and there and come and go throughout this movie, but very briefly. So it's basically resting all on the two actresses who lead this movie. And they do an excellent job. But Sarah, all the wounds on her, she looks real messed up. Her husband Matthew's dead. Then we get a really bloody and weird credit sequence, which works very well for this film. So we see Sarah getting tests done right before Christmas Eve, and she's about to give birth. The baby looks all good and healthy. And then there's this random, it's not really random, but I always remember it because this woman just looks like she's been there for 75 years or so, this nurse, and she's smoking in the hospital, and she gets told off by some other employee, you're not supposed to be smoking here, you know this. Then she gets in a tit for tat with Sarah. It is kind of random, I guess is my point, and she's a complete cunt, this woman, the nurse who comes over. But every time I watch this, I do say, oh, here's this bitch, so I had to bring it up. One thing I really love about this film, which I think Martyrs shares the same attribute, just the foreboding, depressing as hell, eerie, creepy atmosphere that builds and builds throughout this movie. There's no downtime in this film. There's no little sprinkles of humor to try to make you haha between scares and disturbing shit. No. Just like Martyrs, this movie is from beginning to end depressing. So why are we watching it right now? Aside from it being a great film, it's a Christmas movie, and those always bring joy despite the time of year. Another thing this film does extraordinarily well is everything with the lighting in Sarah's house. The way that they make this house so darkly lit throughout most of this, and it's not just there for that reason, just for it to be dark because it's a horror movie. It plays into all the depression and guilt and all the feelings that she's feeling because of the car accident that killed her husband. And she's about to give birth to their baby. And so it all works really, really well together and makes for a really, really spooky fucking shot when we first see the woman come into this house. Yeah, all the lighting is really good in this movie. You get a little bit of body horror here. You get a little dream sequence, or nightmare I should say, when Sarah's sitting in the rocking chair and she's knitting, and then she falls asleep. And then she starts vomiting profusely, all white shit on the ground. And then she turns over on her back, and then the baby starts coming out of her mouth until she wakes up really fast. That's cool. I don't know if it really has to be in here, since it just seems like they needed a scare 17 minutes into this movie, and that was the reason. But it works. It's cool looking. And then this creep woman, till we get a name, makes her presence known by knocking on the door, pretending she needs help and she needs to use their phone. And Sarah saying, listen, my husband went to sleep. You can go to somebody else's house. And then she lets the whole charade down. First of all, drops her name, says, Sarah, your husband's dead. He's not sleeping. So already instilling a lot of fear into this woman. She's a pregnant woman home alone on Christmas Eve after just losing her husband in a violent car accident months prior, and she's having dreams her baby's coming out of her mouth, so she's not going into this pregnancy with the most positive of thoughts. So I can't imagine how terrifying it must be to be in her shoes. So then we get the first scene where we see the woman, and I forgot that we saw her this early, so I'm thinking of a different cool shot later on. But the way that you see just her silhouette when she's outside the house and there's like these glass windows and Sarah's on the inside and she makes a call to the police, says there's a strange woman out here, send somebody, I'm pregnant. Then she lights a cigarette up while she's outside looking in. You see her face just a little bit. All of it is shot really, really well, and it's very, very creepy. I don't know if it's just French chicks. They look more intimidating. I don't know. But I compare it to The Strangers. And yeah, they have masks on and that, so it's a little different. But you look at this woman's face for 1 second and you know she means business. You know that she's getting in there. Her primary objective is to get that baby out of this bitch's stomach. And the same with Sarah's character. You look at her, it's not like looking at Liv Tyler in The Strangers and then she's hiding and shit. No. Sarah in this movie kicks major ass, and she has all the guilt and the trauma. What she's been through is just displayed on her face like a battle scar, and she doesn't care who's there to see it, and she's going to do whatever it takes to protect her child. These French chicks mean fucking business in this movie, and that's another thing that I think is so effective about this film. Like I said, the acting is just excellent from the two leads here. And then the cops arrive, and they do their job, I guess. I mean, there's not much they can do, but she did take some photos of the woman when she was outside the glass. You could see her face, like, very slightly, but they say it's not good enough and they can't tell who it is. I mean, I don't know. We as an audience see it, and you could see the woman's face a bit, so at least they can rule out it being a ginger or something. They could, I don't know, whatever. So they end up just reassuring her and saying, we told all the squads that we have patrolling tonight about what happened here. They're going to check in on you every now and then, try to make her feel a little safer. And it works for a bit until this shit happens. And this is the scene I was talking about earlier, that the lighting is so well done in this scene. You don't even notice this woman is standing behind Sarah until you really, make your eyes adjust. I just looked up at the screen while it was on pause and said, oh, this is about to be that cool shot, and didn't even realize I was already staring at the woman behind her. That's how well done it is. Sarah's watching the news, and I don't know, there's this whole little subplot in this movie. I don't think it really comes to fruition in any way, but it's peppered throughout this. We see Sarah talking to her employer. She's a journalist. And he mentions that there's riots and stuff going on nearby, like in whatever city they're in. And then she's watching it again on the news. So we hear it a few times. I don't know if it's just supposed to be some subtext or maybe something that was going on in France at the time. I have no idea. But she's watching this on the news. And then it pans out in such a way that you see a silhouette standing behind her. And she's closer to her. And then she ends up scooting back a few feet into the shadows as it pans out and you fully adjust your eyes and say, oh shit, somebody's standing there. It's really, really well done. And that's how you make an effective fucking scary scene. And it lingers on this woman in the shadows for a decent amount of time. And then you're totally on edge because now she's laying in bed after taking pills, and we see the CGI baby again, and again, it's fine. It's not like the abomination that's the CGI baby from the Twilight franchise. Remember that fucker? The entire build-up of the woman grabbing the scissors and silently stalking around the house and looking at Sarah sleeping, which I always say is the most scary shit in the world. When you're sleeping, you're at your most vulnerable. You don't know what can be going on around you. And just knowing there's this crazy bitch there with a pair of scissors. And then when she finally takes the scissors and she pushes down into her belly button and Sarah wakes up, then it's on. From this part of the movie to the end, it's pretty much a game of cat and mouse. Or more specifically, like Itchy and Scratchy from The Simpsons, where they're both murdering each other left and right. And Sarah gets slashed across her face with the scissors. When she goes to the bathroom, she locks herself inside there. Then she turns the lights on, and you can see the gash across her lips and stuff. All of that looks really, really good. And there's already so much blood in this house. And it hasn't even gotten to, like, the second act. And then, of course, her water breaks in the bathroom, which I'm not judging, but this seems like the worst possible time to give birth to a child. Now, I'm pretty sure this movie ends with us finding out that the woman who's trying to take Sarah's baby was the other car from the accident at the beginning of the movie that killed Sarah's husband. And this woman was pregnant, and the accident killed her baby. And this is why she wants her revenge, and she wants this baby as a replacement for the baby that accident cost her. It's not super original, and it doesn't... I mean, you still look at this woman as the insane bitch of this movie. I mean, Sarah is at no fault at all here. But it does try to justify her actions a little bit, that she lost her child. I get that. So, I mean, it could have been ended a lot worse, this movie. So then Sarah's boss shows up to check on her, and the creepy woman is there, and she pretends to be Sarah's mom because Sarah's still locked in the bathroom. And this is when this movie just goes to the next level. I mean, these kills are insanely gory and are insanely well done. After they're talking for a few minutes, Sarah's real mom comes through the door and starts asking, where's my daughter? Where's my daughter? So she runs upstairs, and Sarah thinks it's the creepy woman at the door, and she opens the door and she stabs her mother in the neck. And then in pure Dario Argento Tenebrae fashion, it's the only thing I can think of every time I watch this. The blood spray out of her neck hole and stuff onto the wall. It looks disturbing. It looks glorious. And then Jean-Pierre, I think is the boss's name, he comes up the stairs and the girl's behind him. The woman stabs him through the back of his knee, it looks like. It's pretty cool looking. And then stabs him right in his dick with the scissors and is twisting it about. Real disturbing stuff. And there's some really cool sound cues that go off. I'm not going to try to imitate it, but real cool sound in this scene too. The woman drags the boss's body down the stairs into the living room, but then he's still alive, so she grabs a pillow, puts it over his head, and stabs him in the head through the pillow. That's cool, too. And Sarah ends up running back into the bathroom, and the woman's reaching her arm in. She takes a pencil and smashes her in the arm with it and breaks the pencil off. Great, great effects throughout this movie. And now there's blood everywhere. Like going back to the 4 movies that I mentioned at the beginning that I feel always get brought up in the French Extremity subgenre, I think this is the bloodiest one and goriest one. Martyrs has its moments, but you're mostly just talking about the gunshots in the very beginning and then some real disturbing imagery throughout the rest. High Tension, I feel like it's not as bloody as this movie, and it's actually been a very long time since I've seen Frontiers, so I can't really comment as much on that, but I want to say it's not as bloody and gory as this movie. This is a very, very chaotic film. I do like the fact that she has a pet cat, this black cat, who just wanders around the house throughout all of this insanity. That's a cool little touch. God damn it, I spoke too fucking soon because she just cracked the neck of that cat. This movie is like Tom and Jerry on super acid. Okay, I think I figured out why I keep paying attention heavily to the CGI baby and why it's annoying me. It's not about how it looks. I just feel like it didn't have to be in this movie at all. Like, we keep cutting to these short, like I said, brief little shots of a CGI baby inside of her. But it doesn't have to be here. Like, I can imagine what's going on in her belly with all this insanity without cutting to images of a CGI baby to show us. So maybe that's just the issue I have with it. I feel like it doesn't really belong here. It doesn't have to be here. Yeah, there's just so many great effects in this movie. Sarah is back in the bathroom, but she has her arm out through a hole in the door, and the woman pins her arm with the scissors to the outside of the bathroom, so her arm is through the door, but the scissors are pinning her arm on the outside. That looks really cool. Then the cops show up, and they go to arrest this woman, and she mutilates this one cop, grabs his gun, then when the other one, Sarah opens the door for him at the bathroom, this happens, and his head gets blown to bits. Then you get the gnarly scene when Sarah lights the woman's face ablaze with the aerosol can. I'm telling you, this is why this movie works for me on like the home invasion subgenre of horror level, more so than The Strangers or other movies you can throw in as examples. Is that even though the woman in this movie is out of her mind and deranged, she, in her mind, I'm sure, thinks this is her baby that she's trying to take from Sarah, because she says that she lost her kid in the accident. This is her replacement. So you pretty much have two mothers fighting for their child. And that's as animalistic and primal as you can get, man. And this movie shows all of that off perfectly. These women don't stop beating and stabbing and hurting the shit out of each other throughout the entire runtime as soon as she gets into this house. But then she ends up getting beat in the stomach, Sarah, by one of the police officers who was dead than dead. I don't know how he's still alive. He's blinded and stuff from the injury when he's shot in the face. I don't know. But he beats her in the stomach, and she is about to give birth to this baby. And we get the end, which is very disturbing, where we have the woman giving a C-section like she initially planned at the very beginning to take the baby out of Sarah because the baby's stuck. So now she's pleading with this evil bitch who's been trying to take her baby this whole movie, pleading with her to cut the baby out. And we get a depressing ending with Sarah dead, and we have this woman holding the baby, rocking in a chair in this bloodbath of a house. And that's how it ends. Just, bleak ending, but brutal film, classic French horror film, and yeah, the lighting really blew me away, even more so than any other time that I've watched this in the past on this rewatch. Just the use of shadow and having the woman creep in those shadows, and purposely, I'm guessing this was on purpose, having the bathroom as the central room that always has the light on, where the rest of the house remains dark throughout the film, kind of like the bathroom is Sarah's sanctuary, that's her safe place, so it's bright in there, there's light, there's hope in there. Outside of that bathroom, it's just a massacre, just like one of the cops says, and he describes this movie perfectly. He walks in and says, a fucking war zone. Yes, it is. So that's Inside from 2007. This is a real fun watch, as fun as a movie with this type of content can be. But if you are a big fan of these French Extremity films, I have done a video on High Tension, I have done a video on Martyrs, and yeah, Frontiers, for some reason, I don't remember a lot of. That's one I'm going to have to do sometime soon. But I'll put the links for the High Tension and Martyrs videos at the end of this video. Hope everyone's having a great night, morning, or afternoon, wherever you're from. And I will talk to you soon. This has been a Horror After Dark podcast in the Sack with JT. Good night, boils and ghouls.